Hello, family and friends. My name is Taylor Cottom, and here we are at Fireside Chat. I want to talk today a little bit about one of the things that's kind of going around all the corporations and a lot of the schools. Both the education and corporate world are really into this, and I would say probably more than half of the world has been blindsided that this is a wonderful thing, and that's diversity, equity, and inclusion, and otherwise known by its acronyms DEI. And now most large corporations have an officer of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And let's split those things up one at a time. This is something which sounds good, but it has a lot of side effects and a lot of things in it that we don't want to you don't want to talk about, and I'm going to talk about them here. And I'm also going to talk about what is more important than diversity, equity, inclusion, because on its surface, let's say diversity, equity. I think diversity is. I'm indifferent to to diversity. Equity is bad, and inclusion is actually good. So I'm going to talk about these three things, why they put them together, and how and what is more important than diversity, equity, inclusion. Let's start with diversity. Diversity, and I say I'm indifferent about diversity because when they're talking about diversity, they're almost always talking about racial diversity. Sometimes they talk about someone in the LGBTQ spectrum, and also about gender diversity, right? So male, female. But let's just look at the first one, which is racial diversity. I am indifferent on racial diversity, and not that I don't appreciate it, and not that I don't like it. I think there are so many places and so many wonderful people in this world, and I think once you get to know somebody, everybody has some intrinsic good within them. Um, However, let's look at some of the different places where they've been very successful. Look at a place like Singapore, which is, economically a wonderful success. Is there much racial diversity in Singapore? There is not. It's 90% ethnic Chinese. Um, let's go to another one. In China, is there much ethnic racial diversity in China? Well, not really. It's almost all Han Chinese. In Japan, not much diversity there. Korea, not much. Even a place like Africa, there's really not a lot of diversity there. Really, if we're honest with ourselves, the places where there's most racial diversity is in the Americas, meaning United States and all throughout Latin America. They have a good mix of European, African, and Native American, and a lot of actually Asians. And depending on where you go, I mean, the second largest ethnic group in Brazil is the Japanese, and there's a lot of ethnic Chinese and Japanese that have just kind of melted into society. So you don't see big neighborhoods of Chinatowns within Lima, although there is one, but most of the people there have just melted back into society and just become part of the society. And in the United States, at least, there is a big push for racial diversity. And let's look at this. I don't think diversity, and there amongst those, there is a common phrase which is said around the board, which is diversity is our strength. I think that's false. Our strength, or the strength of any team, comes from unity of purpose. Unity of purpose is our strength. And by unity of purpose, I say nothing about the racial background of the people who are involved. You could have 10 blacks, you could have 10 whites, 10 Hispanics, and if you have unity of purpose, you could have a very successful group. Likewise, it could be 50-50 or 60-20, and or 1 out of 10 you know could be black, or 1 out of 10 could be white. It really doesn't matter. What matters is unity of purpose. As for example, if you had a diverse group of people, meaning a racially diverse group of people, but they had very different purposes and very different places where they place their values, that would be a disaster for an organization. and very different goals, right? So that would not be a, despite the fact that they would be racially diverse, as a really in all essence, it would be a non-functional group. And you could have also 10 whites who were had a unity purpose. They could have a very functional group. Same with 10 blacks, or same with any other whatever ethnic minority or you want to put in there. It could be. And that's a wonderful thing when you look at somebody next to you, no matter who they are, and you say we have a common purpose and a common goal and we share values. You instantly feel a brotherhood towards that person. And so as this fireside chat is for to go a little bit in deep to some of the topics of the day, but not to make it dated. um, this is also meant for friends and family, so that they think, um, I don't want anyone to get involved in trying to repurpose diversity and think that for its own sake it's a value. You can say that diversity thought is important, especially when it comes to very complex topics. And what we see right now from the United States and from corporations in general is that there's a lot of self censorship. Nobody wants to be seen taking the view which is not the orthodoxy. Right now, it's in the middle of COVID-19, so if we want to use that as an example, if you want to express an opinion outside of vaccines are good, you're not going to get an audience. In fact, that kind of diversity is very unwelcome at this point. They're going to call you hater. They're going to call you unsafe. There's a million things that they could call you. So diversity of thought can be good. Diversity of opinions is good. The only reason I don't say diversity of thought is necessarily good because there are a lot of bad ideas, and that ideas which don't work are nonsense or just plain wrong or evil, right? So I'm not going to go down the road of saying all diversity of thought is good, but what I will say is unity of purpose is good, and it brings me back to the scriptures where it talks about in the Bible where Jesus Christ is talking, saying the Father and I are one, and when they always do the prayers, it's always in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. So they had a unity of purpose, right? And so also the followers of Jesus Christ, they had a unity and purpose, and that's what gave their lives meaning. And so unity of purpose is much, much more important than diversity, which is, for me, I'm indifferent to diversity. The second part of that is equity. So we have diversity, equity, inclusion. Second part of that is equity. Equity means is not equality of opportunity, it's equality of outcome. This is a pernicious idea. This is a bad idea. This is an evil idea. Equity by itself causes people to do stupid things thinking that they're helping people, when in reality they're hurting them. For example, if you feel like you have to hire to meet your quotas, do you really want to be the person that got the job, and you might be very wonderfully talented, but do you really want to be there and say, you know what, I bet you they didn't think that I got it? And secondly, in the world today, when I hear my bosses say, I want to hire women, I want my next person to be a woman, or maybe they want to pay attention to diversity, and I think, let's just get the best person in there. And believe me, I work for a very racially diverse company, very, very good, but I don't think that focusing on that racial diversity is beneficial. Um, have people bring themselves into the equation. In other words, if they're Hispanic, they want to do something to highlight that is actually a good thing. But equity goes much deeper, and it causes people not to get accepted into universities, to not get accepted into jobs, in the name of equity. So I'm saying equity is bad. And the last one, inclusion. I think inclusion is good. Um, Inclusion means inviting other people to the table. At least to me, it means inviting other people to the table. It also means accepting those who are different from you, even if they are part of the LGBT spectrum, homosexual, maybe even transsexual or transgender. It just means acceptance of them. All those things are good, and but uh, the inclusion part also implies that we have to accept anything that people give us, and that if people bring a lifestyle which you have a revulsion towards, that you have to accept it. I don't agree with that, um, but I do believe that it is good to be welcoming and to bring people into your circle and to allow them to enjoy, whether it's in the company or they're your neighbors, treat them with respect, and I believe in that. And the reason I want to talk about these three things is there are lots of programs out there. Right now is diversity, equity, inclusion. There's also social emotional learning, and there's also anti-bullying campaigns. There's other things um, such as mental health awareness. A lot of these campaigns either start out well and get corrupted, or they are both good and bad, and they're being used as a Trojan horse. One of the ones I like to say is the anti bullying campaigns. For example, anti-bullying. Everyone believes in anti-bullying. I don't think it's good to bully somebody. Um, at the same time, when they bring in the anti-bullying programs into many of the schools, they also use it as a way to teach people that men can be women and women can be men, and they use something which is good and corrupt it and use something and use it to teach something which is wholly nonsense and actually destructive. And it's also can be seen with climate change, where um, you know we should respect and love the planet. We should pick up after ourselves. We should keep the planet clean. When going outdoors, we should respect the places that we go. And I believe, as a Boy Scout, leave no trace camping. So there's all these things that are good. Now, but at the same time, I don't disagree with the science that says the planet might be warming up. I do disagree with economics. Um, so as a whole, climate change is one of those which has some very positive aspects to it, but you can use it to do things which would be destructive to society. And so what I want to recommend is that anytime that somebody touts some big new program, that ask yourself, is it built upon the traditions that we have within our society that have made us great? And usually, if it's some newfangled or comes from the new university, uh, we should be very skeptical, and that's it, and realize even things that are good can be turned around and twisted and be used against us. So anyway, that's my thoughts on diversity, equity, inclusion. And I do have just an update on myself. I also have my father-in-law right now currently living with us in the house, and I just want to say one of the questions that I've had is, who do we have here? How long are they going to be here, etc. And I asked myself, what is our responsibility as children to our aging parents? And I believe we have an opportunity and a duty to take care of them and to respect them. And the second commandment, or actually not the second commandment, but I believe in honoring our father and mother so our days can be long within the earth. And it is our duty to make that real and to make it so that we can honor and respect them. And are they perfect? No. You might not honor and you might not even get along with your parents, right? But do you respect them and do you honor them? I think that's more important than actually getting along. And that might mean spending time with them, making phone calls to them, listening when they have something to say. They do have wisdom that they have gained as part of being on the planet longer and seeing some of the things of life, and I think that can be gained. But even if they were a bad person and they were not kind and they're very grumpy and miserable and crotchety and towards the end of their life, maybe they start forgetting things. Maybe they start, losing control of their bodily functions, and even in those instances, we should honor them and respect them. And I think the the mainstay or the default is to put them in a home. I'm not saying that in some cases it's not required or necessary towards the end of life. I think there is an amount of care which is given, which in all likelihood is going to be too much for one person. So I do think there is a place for that, but um, I like to be with people and I like to be with them when they're here. And anyway, that's my thoughts. Look forward to it again next week. And thanks and have a great day.